In the summer of 1912, Josiah and Sarah Moore were established figures in Villisca, Iowa. They were raising 4 children in a community that viewed them as a stable, affluent pillar of local life. On the evening of June 9th, the family and 2 young guests, Anna and Lena Stillinger, attended a Children's Day program at the local Presbyterian church. After the service, the group walked back to the Moore house, arriving just before 10 p.m. The home sat in typical rural isolation. That night, 8 people went to sleep in a house that was already being watched from the shadows of the barn. By the early hours of June 10th, the domestic peace of the Moore house was replaced by a level of violence the town had never encountered. The next morning, a neighbor grew concerned when the Moores didn't appear for their morning chores. She contacted Josiah's brother, Ross, who used his own key to unlock the front door and step into the silent hallway. Inside, he found the bodies of all 8 occupants. The 6 children and 2 adults had been killed in their beds while they slept. The autopsy revealed a specific pattern to the violence. Josiah Moore had been struck repeatedly with the blade of an axe until his face was destroyed. For the other 7 victims, the killer used the heavy, blunt end of the weapon to deliver the fatal blows. Inside the house, investigators found a series of oddities. 2 spent cigarettes were discovered in the attic, suggesting someone had waited overhead. A lamp with its wick turned low sat near the bodies, and a 4-pound slab of bacon had been left on the kitchen table next to the axe. The killer had also moved through the rooms to cover every reflective surface. Mirrors and windows throughout the house were draped with clothing and blankets taken from the family's dressers. News of the murders spread instantly. Hundreds of townspeople rushed to the home, walking through the blood and handling the murder weapon. Some even took pieces of bone from the master bedroom as souvenirs. This immediate influx of people destroyed the physical evidence before a formal investigation could begin. Without clear fingerprints or footprints to follow, the killer's trail vanished into the morning. Local suspicion first fell on Frank F. Jones, a wealthy Iowa state senator and businessman. Josiah Moore had once worked for Jones, but left to start a competing hardware store. In the process, Moore took a successful John Deere dealership away from his former employer. Rumors of a business feud were further complicated by local gossip, suggesting Moore was having an affair with Jones's daughter-in-law. While Jones had the resources to hire someone to harm a rival, investigators struggled to explain why a business dispute would result in the deaths of 6 sleeping children. Attention later shifted to Reverend George Kelly, a traveling minister who had been at the church the Moores attended just hours before the murders. Kelly had a history of mental instability and had been accused of stalking and predatory behavior toward young women and girls. He left town on a train before dawn on the morning the bodies were found. Afterward, he sent a series of detailed, obsessive letters to investigators that contained information only someone at the scene would likely know. Kelly eventually confessed to the crimes in court, claiming he was following divine commands. Despite the confession, his mental state made his testimony unreliable. He was tried twice and ultimately acquitted, leaving the case without a definitive suspect. As the local leads failed, a different possibility emerged, that the killer was a transient riding the rail lines, a figure the press began calling Billy the Axeman. The rail system of 1912 allowed a killer to travel hundreds of miles between towns, striking a home and returning to the tracks before the sun rose. In the months surrounding the Villisca tragedy, similar axe murders occurred in Colorado Springs and Paola, Kansas, all within walking distance of the train tracks. In each of these cases, the killer shared the same habits. Victims were struck with an axe, a lamp left burning, and mirrors covered with cloth. Police departments of the era operated in isolation, lacking the central databases needed to track a killer across state lines. The man on the train remained out of reach. The lack of forensic tools like fingerprinting and blood typing, combined with the contaminated crime scene, meant the investigation hit a dead end. Today, the Moore home has been restored to its original 1912 condition. It stands as a destination for dark tourism, where visitors pay to stay overnight in the rooms where the family was found. The violence of that night in June 1912 never reached a legal conclusion. The person responsible stepped out of the house and onto the rails, leaving behind a mystery that remains unsolved over a century later. अगर आपको ऐसी सच्ची और रहस्यमयी कहानियाँ पसंद हैं तो वीडियो को लाइक ज़रूर करें, इसे अपने दोस्तों और परिवार के साथ शेयर करें और ऐसी ही डरावनी, रहस्यमयी और अनसुलझी कहानियों के लिए हमारे चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करना बिल्कुल मत भूलिए, क्योंकि अगली कहानी शायद इससे भी ज़्यादा खौफनाक हो सकती है।